According to the Washington Post, last year in 2019, there were 9 unarmed black men killed by the police by gunshot. Now there were 15 altogether. There were 19 white unarmed men killed by firearms, and presumably that number was somewhat higher when you add up those who were killed without guns. The point is, in recent years, at least as many unarmed whites have been killed by the cops as have been unarmed blacks. But when an unarmed white gets killed by the cop, nobody cares. No Van Jones, no Don Lemon, no CNN, no MSNBC hee-haw, and it gives you such an unfair and distorted picture about what's going on. Last year, there were roughly 15,000 homicides in this country. Half of the victims were black. Almost all of those homicide black victims were killed by other blacks, mostly young blacks. It is a huge problem within the inner city crime. Take Chicago. Chicago is a city that's a third black, a third white, a third Hispanic. Yet 70% of the homicides in Chicago are black on black. And get this, nearly 75% of these homicides go unsolved. Here's the problem. The number one preventable act of death for a young white person is an accident, like an auto accident or a drowning accident. The number one cause of death, preventable or otherwise, for young blacks is homicide. And again, almost always at the hands of another young black person.
A jury in Minnesota found former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all counts in the murder of George Floyd last May. It was a murder in the full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see. The systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. The systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul.
The issue with the institutions you bring up is an interesting one, because we've been told for the past few weeks that all of these protests are about institutional racism, right? But then it occurred to me, the left controls every major institution in America.
Yeah.
Control the media, controls higher education and lower education, controls Hollywood, controls big tech, controls administrative government, basically other than talk radio and some little parts of the internet. The left controls every institution. So if there's institutional racism, whose fault is that?
Is racism still a major problem in America? President Barack Obama certainly thinks so. He said that racism is in our DNA. Really? If racism is in our DNA, doesn't that mean it's immutable, unchangeable? But America has changed, and dramatically so. In 1960, 60% of Americans said they would never vote for a black president. Almost 50 years later, the black man who said racism is in America's DNA was elected president, and 4 years later, re-elected. That's only the most obvious example of racial progress. There are many others.
The fact that you are going to be able to reassemble the kind of government that cares about people and brings people together.